Welcome, everyone. Tonight we have Dr. Al Gedicks. He is the Executive Secretary of the Wisconsin Resources Protection Council, and he has spoken on numerous occasions about the Back 40 mine, and he also leads a bi-weekly meeting about mining concerns in our area. So let's welcome Dr. Gedicks. Thank you for sharing your information with us tonight.
Thank you, Dean. It's glad to be here. Tonight, we're going to look at the issue of sulfide mining next to the largest river system in the Upper Peninsula. And notice the title, it's sulfide mining, even though the industry calls it a gold or a zinc mine, and pro-mining legislators routinely refer to the project as a gold mine. The fact of the matter is that to describe something, a body of rock of which only 1% ends up as gold or valuable zinc as a gold mine, ignoring the vast majority of the sulfide minerals, which compose 99% of the waste rock that comes out of the mine as a gold mine, is a misleading picture of the basic dirty issue, dirty problem of the mining industry, which is that anytime you have a sulfide mine, especially in a water-rich environment like the upper Midwest, you inevitably have the release of acid mine drainage, which we'll talk about in a minute, as well as the release of heavy metals like arsenic and mercury and lead into the environment, which are toxic to the air, the water, and the soil. Next slide. So to give you an overview of, go back one slide. To give you an overview of where this project has been over the past 30 years, the basic status that we are dealing with right now is that the primary driver of the project, a Canadian company called Aquila Resources, has been driven to bankruptcy and to withdraw the permits for the mine because of the opposition, both at the grassroots level as well as at the level of legal challenges to the project. The bankruptcy of the company has led to a further misleading interpretation of the new company that has taken over, namely Gold Resource Corporation out of Denver. And the origins of this big lie go back to January 4th, 2021, when Judge Poulter in Michigan overturned the wetlands permit of Aquila Resources for the Back 40 project on the banks of the Menominee River. And the reason why the project was denied a wetland permit goes back to the corruption in the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, which approved the wetlands permit in 2018 over the objections of the agency's own scientific staff, who recommended that the project be denied because it did not meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act. In response to that miscarriage of justice, not by the scientists at the agency, but by the head of the agency, the Menominee Nation, the Coalition to Save the Menominee River, and Tom Borner, a private landowner next to the mine, filed objections to the permit for failing to disclose significant impacts of the project on wetlands, and therefore did not meet the requirements of the wetland permit. When the permit was overturned, the information that was in the permit contaminated the other permits as well, because a lot of the information was not based upon rigorous scientific analysis. In fact, some of it, as the judge pointed out, was based upon misleading and fraudulent information. So Aquila, the company that proposed the project, withdrew all the permits for the Back 40 mine and tried to raise funds to continue an entirely new project with new permits. They promoted the project to 30 investors who all turned down any possibility of investing in the mine. The only one company that agreed to invest in the mine was Goro Gold Resource Corporation, who agreed to purchase the bankrupt Aquila company. On September 8th, 2021, the company told its shareholders, quote, that the key to take away on the project is that it has, in fact, been fully permitted before. That, in fact, is the big lie upon which the entire new permit process has been initiated. There was no such thing as all permits having been granted. In fact, they had to withdraw their dam safety permit before they declared bankruptcy and sold out to Goro. So the entire premise of this new permitting process is based upon the lie that the new company told its shareholders that they had, in fact, already been granted all the permits, which was a bald-faced lie. Next. So Goro right now has not filed a new permit application. Aquila Resources had previously proposed an open pit on 83 acres for a massive gold zinc sulfide mine less than 150 feet from the Menominee River. Aquila had told investors they planned an underground mine, but did not disclose that in their permit application. Goro is now planning a combined open pit and underground mine. And if you look at the photo in the slide, this is an artist projection of the extent of the open pit part of the mine. And notice how close it is to the Menominee River. It's less than 150 feet from the river, which means that the inevitable acid mine drainage and heavy metals that are discharged during mining will go directly into the Menominee River, which, as I said, is the largest river system in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Next. Next. Next slide. So the Menominee River is the largest river system in the Upper Peninsula, with a 4,000 square mile drainage area that goes into Lake Michigan. The federal government and multiple agencies have invested over $200 million to clean up the lower portion of the river. And as you see in the slide, the downstream communities affected by the discharge include Green Bay, Appleton, Oshkosh, and the entryway to Lake Michigan. Both Michigan and Wisconsin have worked over the past decades to make this river a viable habitat for sturgeon, and is now being threatened by sulfide mining. In addition, the Menominee Nation's sacred sites and other cultural resources are contained within the footprint of the mine. As the Menominee tribe has pointed out, our place of origin at the mouth of the Menominee River may be destroyed by any adverse impacts on the land, environment, and water from mining disasters. In other words, the origin story of the Menominee Nation is inevitably and inextricably tied up with the proposal to mine in their traditional territory, which was Michigan, before they were forced out of Michigan under the Treaty of 1836 into their present location in Wisconsin, in Menominee County. Next. So the problem with sulfide mining is that wherever you have sulfide mining, especially in a water-rich environment, the water and the air combine to create a chemical reaction in the crushed sulfide mineral rock that comes out of the mine that results in both acid mine drainage and the release of heavy metals like arsenic and lead and mercury into the environment. The best estimate we have from environmental regulatory agencies is that existing sulfide mines in the United States will pollute up to 27 billion gallons of fresh water per year in the extraction of all sorts of minerals from a sulfide ore body. And the main reason is that acid mine drainage occurs, as you see in the slide, when deposits containing sulfides are exposed to air and water during extraction. And when you bring those minerals to the surface, crush them into fine particles, those fine particles begin to generate the chemical conditions for acid mine drainage. Next. All right, we talked about the fact that the original proposal to shareholders from Aquila included an underground component that wasn't disclosed in their permit application. In the present owner, Goro, who plans both an open pit and a underground mine, you have the problem of what is known as a cone of depression when you excavate a large open pit in a water-rich environment next to the Menominee River. All the water in the surrounding aquifer flows into the open pit, and you have to dewater that area in order to mine the open pit. The same thing with an underground mine. As you dig several hundred feet into the bedrock, you encounter large amounts of water incoming to the underground mine that have to be taken out or dewatered from the underground facility, and that creates a cone of depression or a lowering of the water table in the surrounding wetlands. And of course, this was one of the problems that Aquila ran into with their wetland permit. They did not disclose the full extent of the wetland drawdown and therefore the destruction of wetlands that would occur when you drain the water from the open pit and from the underground mining operation. And once you do that, that excavation or dewatering of the mine, what you have is the disclosure or the availability of sulfate, which is the chemical form of sulfide minerals, total dissolved solids and metals, particularly arsenic, which contaminate groundwater and can be expected solely by creating a groundwater decline. Decreasing the water table brings oxygen into the sulfide minerals, producing what is known as in situ acid drainage. And as you see in the slide, the deeper the underground excavation, the larger the amount of water that has to be taken out, and therefore the greater the drawdown in the surrounding area. Next. In August 2015, an abandoned gold mine in Colorado accidentally spilled more than 3 million gallons of toxic waste, threatening communities in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and the Navajo Nation that drew water.
I remember the color of the water, not necessarily the kayakers.
Sally, could you mute yourself, please? Sally, could you mute yourself, please?
Mute, okay.
All right, what you
Thank you.
see in the slide are 3 kayakers who were in the Colorado River before the gold mine released a large amount of acid drainage into the Colorado River. And what happened was essentially they were caught in the middle of this discharge of acid mine drainage and heavy metals. And of course, given the toxicity of the acid, if those kayakers were to put their hands in the water, their hands would come up as a skeleton because the level of acid in that acid drainage is equivalent to the acid in a car battery. Next. The EPA estimates that 40% of the headwaters of Western watersheds are contaminated by acid drainage from abandoned and unreclaimed mines. In other words, the spill in Colorado is one of many hundreds of spills that are waiting to happen because of the toxicity of sulfide mining next to major water bodies. Next. So the problem at the Back 40 mine site, as with many of the mine sites, is that these are very low-grade ores. So as the richest ores that are closer to the surface are depleted, the remaining deposits tend to be lower grade, deeper in the ground, and produce a greater volume of wastes in relation to metal product. Extracting a single ounce of gold produces 79 tons of mine waste left on the land, 70 million tons of milled tailings, which is the acid-producing waste rock that comes out of the milling process, would result from the proposed Back 40 mine operation. Mine tailings, as I said, are the waste material resulting from the crushing and chemical processing of mineral ores. Tailings often contain lead, mercury, cyanide, and arsenic that can be toxic when released to the environment. Next. The vast majority of the excavated rock ends up as sulfide-bearing waste rock that is stored in tailings dams at the mine site. Tailings dams are constructed out of crushed waste rock and soil, not steel and concrete, as in the kind of dams that we're familiar with that retain water. Aquila's Back 40 tailings dam was 123 acres in size, which is the equivalent of 100 football fields. This is a depiction of a tar sands tailings dam, but the basic idea is you deposit finely grained waste in these over 100 feet piles over a mile long that gradually seep liquid, that is acidic liquid, into the underlying soil and groundwater. And notice on the edge of the slide, you have seepage collection ditches which collect the wastewater because that wastewater has to be transferred to a water treatment facility before it can be treated, before it can be discharged into the environment. And of course, these collection ditches are not 100% effective. What happens is that there is an inevitable discharge of contaminated acid drainage from these tailings dams in perpetuity because they are now permanent structures of the environment. Next. So if you look at the schematic for the Back 40 tailings dam, if you look in the middle of the layout, under number two, number one is the open pit. Number two is the waste piles. So the tailings area and the waste piles are located right next to the open pit, and it is the largest by area facility related to the extraction of the gold and the zinc. Next. Poorly regulated tailings frequently discharge waste into the environment, as happened in January 2000 with a spill of 100 tons of cyanide contaminated water at a gold plant in Baia Mare on the Romanian-Hungarian border. More than 1,400 tons of fish died as a result of the accident. It also destroyed the livelihood for fishermen along the Tisza River in Hungary. In some Romanian and Hungarian towns downstream, the drinking water supply had to be shut down for days. Montana voters banned the use of cyanide in mining in 1998. The Czech Republic banned it in 2000. Menominee County opposed the use of cyanide in Menominee County, Michigan. Next. One of the most serious tailings dam disasters in recent years occurred in 2019 when a tailings dam in Brazil released about 3 billion gallons of sludge mine waste into the downstream community of Brumadinho. It killed 270 people in the deadliest ever mining accident in Brazilian history. Large parts of the local river have become unusable for fishing or as a water supply. Next. Well, Brazil's mining agency has already banned the failed tailings dam design from further use, Michigan regulators are poised to consider this design and risk a catastrophic dam failure that could threaten drinking water for millions in Wisconsin and Michigan and around Lake Michigan. Next. Tourism and outdoor industrial activities generate income for businesses on both sides of the Menominee River. A clean, healthy river is vital to the region's economy. In 2018, tourism from Marinette County generated $159 million. The Water Resources Division of Michigan's Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy concluded that the release of heavy metals into groundwater and discharge to the land and water interface has a high probability of adversely impacting fish and wildlife. Constituents in solution may be transported downstream with the limited information available for review. The extent of the probable effects to fish and wildlife is unknown. Next. In 2018, the Menominee Nation filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the Federal Environmental Protection Agency did not have the authority to delegate the permitting process affecting an interstate watershed to Michigan. As former chairman of the tribal legislature, and this is Gary Besaw, I see this as a battle for the future of the healthy environment in the region. It is also a battle about showing proper respect for the Menominee tribe's traditional landscape that contains ancient garden beds, burial mounds, and sacred sites. Next. The Menominee Nation water protectors have joined with local citizens, environmental and sport fishing groups in both Michigan and Wisconsin in persuading towns, counties, and tribes to pass resolutions opposing the Back 40 project. Menominee County, Michigan, site of the proposed mine, voted 5-4 to oppose the project. Next. Widespread concerns about downstream mining pollution spurred resolutions against the project in 7 additional counties, 4 towns, dozens of tribal governments, along with environmental, sport fishing, and religious groups. If you look at the map on the left side of the screen, all those counties in green are downstream from the proposed Back 40 mine. All of them have passed resolutions against the mining project. Tim Landwehr, the business owner, go back. Right. Tim Landwehr is the owner of the fishing guide company Tight Lines in De Pere, Wisconsin, who sums it up very nicely. If something happens, we're left with a giant hole. That's it. We're left with a poison river and a giant hole. So this is not just a threat to the environment; it's a threat to the tourism and the sport fishing economy of the Menominee River watershed and Lake Michigan. Next. In June 2018, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality approved a Killis wetland permit, overriding the objections of the agency's own scientists, who recommended that the permit be denied. Both the Menominee tribe and the Coalition to Save the Menominee River have challenged this decision in administrative contested case hearings. According to the Water Resources Division, after due consideration of the permit application and on-site investigation, the Water Resources Division finds that the project does not demonstrate that an unacceptable disruption to the aquatic resources of a state will not occur. In other words, the permit did not adequately prove that the surrounding environment would not be harmed by mining operations. Next. Michigan regulators have dismissed widespread opposition to the project. However, the international mining industry admits that community support or a social license to operate a mine is as important as a regulatory license. A social license is intangible, it's unwritten, and cannot be granted by any regulatory agency. A social license is essentially a set of demands and expectations held by stakeholders like citizens, environmental groups, and native nations for how a business should operate. The failure to obtain the support of local communities creates a financial and political risk for mining investment. Next. In January 2020, the Menominee Nation declared the Menominee River has inherent and legal rights, including the right to naturally exist, flourish, regenerate, and evolve, and the right to abundant, pure, clean, unpolluted water. This is known as rights of nature and recognizes that our ecosystems have rights just as human beings have rights. Rather than treating nature as property under the law, rights of nature acknowledge that nature in all its life forms has the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital life cycles. For indigenous cultures, this is simply what is so and consistent with their traditions of living in harmony with nature. And they've conducted a number of water walks from the Menominee Nation in Wisconsin to the Menominee River site in Michigan to affirm their respect for the water and for their sacred obligation to protect the water that is essential to life and to the entire ecosystem. Next. In September 2021, Alan Palmier, the president and chief executive officer of Gold Resource Corporation, told his shareholders, "We fully anticipate that this project is going to be relatively easy to permit. Most permitting challenges, certainly the ones that they've experienced in the past, will fall away. We would hopefully obtain all the permits by the end of next year, and I think that is achievable." That is right now an overly optimistic assessment. They have failed to submit a permit application as they had promised at the end of 2022, and they have yet to indicate when a new permit application will be submitted in 2023. Next. Goro told shareholders, "We intend to place the Back 40 project into production on an accelerated basis. We will be submitting an omnibus application for all of the 5 permits to Eagle, and they have indicated that they will deal with this on an expedited basis." The reality is this project has been permitted before. This, of course, is the big lie that Goro has told its shareholders to justify its acquisition of a bankrupt and corrupt company known as Aquila Resources. A combined mining, wetlands, air quality, wastewater discharge, and dam safety permit could be 40,000 pages long. The time allowed for public review and the days Eagle has to make their decision makes it impossible to read, let alone provide for citizen, tribal, and expert comments on the permit. Goro needs to complete an economic feasibility study before submitting any permits. Work on this is expected to continue into 2023. Eagle does not know when Goro will be submitting mine permit applications. And in the slide on the left, you see Mary Hansen and Buddha from the Coalition to Save the Menominee River protesting the notion that this process can be expedited or speeded up to prevent adequate review by the public and the rest of society. Next slide. To avoid complete bankruptcy after their wetlands permit was overturned and the remaining permits were withdrawn, Aquila sold their interest in the Reef gold deposit in Marathon County and the Bend gold and copper deposit in Taylor County, Wisconsin, to Green Light Metals in June of 2021. So if you look at the map, the Gedicks deposit was defeated, by a grassroots Indian and environmental opposition. Same thing with the Lynn deposit and the Cranon deposit. Those were all examples of grassroots activity to defeat sulfide mining projects. Now we have the Bend project in Taylor County and the Reef project in Marathon County, and the Back 40 project on the Michigan-Wisconsin border, which are now being promoted by the bankrupt legacy of Aquila Resources and the corrupt misrepresentation of the gold resource, the Greenlight Metals Corporation, rather. Also, there is the closed Flambeau mine, which is still discharging contaminants from the mine site into the Flambeau River. Next. The Reef deposit in Marathon County is roughly 12 miles east of Wausau in Marathon County, near the Eau Claire Dells, just downstream from proposed exploratory drilling. The Bend deposit is near Medford in Taylor County in the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest, near the North Branch of the Yellow River. This slide shows the Eau Claire Dells area that is just downstream from the proposed Reef project. Next. In October 2022, Greenlight Metals submitted a letter of intent to drill at the Reef deposit as well as the Bend deposit. Most of the drill sites at the Reef deposit are located in wetlands. Community members have objected to the proposed drilling because of its proximity to the dells of the Eau Claire River, which is an environmentally sensitive area, and the Ice Age Trail. Next. Next. What you have in the case of Greenlight Metals is a case of greenwashing of mining. Greenlight Metals president and CEO Dan Colton is using the fact that certain metals and minerals are key for green technologies to greenwash the metal mining industry in general, promoting the nonsensical concept of green mining. The Inflation Reduction Act of the federal government includes tax breaks for mining companies that produce minerals critical to the clean energy economy, such as lithium, cobalt, nickel, and graphite. There are no known deposits of critical minerals in the Reef deposit. Reef is all gold. Gold has nothing whatever to do with green mining or the clean energy economy. The Bend deposit is gold and copper. GLM would not qualify for any of those Inflation Reduction Act subsidies. Mining companies, as Nancy Stencil, one of the opponents of the mining project, said, mining companies used to have to prove they wouldn't pollute under the Wisconsin mining moratorium law. Our communities are saying we should not have to sacrifice clean water. Water is life. If the mining industry believed that they could do this safely, they would not have put all of their money and lobbying power into overturning Wisconsin's mining moratorium law or prove it first law, which required that a company show where sulfide mining has been done without contaminating groundwater or surface water. They were never able to do that, and that's why they overturned the mining law, because they could not comply with the most elementary demand of communities for protection against contamination of their local water supplies. Next. Exploratory drilling at the Reef and Bend deposits are now on indefinite hold. In a 6-page letter, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has asked Greenlight Metals for additional details about proposed exploratory drilling near wetlands at the Bend deposit in Taylor County. No activities near wetlands are permitted. Local citizens say that GLM's exploratory drilling underestimate every aspect of performing mineral exploration drilling in Wisconsin in winter conditions. The total drill hole depths are expected to be as deep as 1,300 feet, with a cumulative depth for all 8 drill holes in the reef deposit of 7,190 feet. Greenlight Metals underestimates the amount of soil, rock, and drill cuttings from the 8 planned drill holes. The exploration drilling of those 8 drill holes are at the Bend deposit in Taylor County. The GLM company underestimates the amount of cement that needs to be placed back into the drill holes to cover the drill holes. That would require over 65,000 pounds or 692 94-pound bags of cement. None of this was anticipated in the application that was submitted by Greenlight Metals to the DNR. And so to approve this project based on their plans would result in environmental degradation and non-compliance on a multitude of fronts. So that concludes the formal part of my presentation. I'd be happy to address any questions that may have come up in the chat.
There's a question, Al, about the Evers administration. Have they taken a position on the Back 40 mine?
Governor Evers, from the governor's office, has come out against the Back 40 mine. However, the Department of Natural Resources under the Scott Walker administration signed off on the federal wetlands or the federal wastewater discharge permit, and therefore there are no legal avenues right now for Wisconsin to intervene in the project, because under the delegation of federal permitting authority to the state of Michigan, the state of Michigan has sole permitting authority over the mining project. If Wisconsin had objected to the federal permit under Scott Walker, that would have been an entirely different question, because the Menominee River is an interstate water body, and Wisconsin has as much right to any decision that affects discharges into the Menominee River as a sovereign state. The one possibility for a change in that status is that the Army Corps of Engineers is now doing a study of whether the Menominee River is a navigable river and therefore qualify for protection, federal protection under the Clean Water Act. If they were to determine that it is a navigable river, that would open up the permitting process both to the state of Wisconsin and as well as the objection of the Menominee tribe to the project on the basis that would affect federally guaranteed trust responsibility for their sacred sites at the site of the proposed mine.
Al, Phyllis says great presentation, and she does have a question. Have Governor Whitmer or Attorney General Dana Nessel taken a stand on this issue, the Back 40 issue?
Yes, Governor Whitmer has consulted with the Menominee tribe. They are in regular consultation with the tribe to advance the clean water interests of both the tribe and the state of Michigan.
Thank you. If anyone has a question for Al, now you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question directly. That covers all the chat box questions.